Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Sox on Tap.
Tony, my first reaction is just fuck yes, let's go.
Sox versus the Twins. That's where it all starts. It all starts taking care of business in-house in the Central Division.
That's right, I'm a meatball.
You got to bring that top button swag, baby.
It is always great to beat the Cubs.
And I'm a homer, so I always say they're gonna.
Dallas Keuchel Lamson got some beards that you should be afraid of.
What everybody said when he gets out there, it's me versus the other guy, and I'm going to beat him. So I just love that mentality. It's cool and fucking tough.
Steve, would you say that Tony is mad online?
I would definitely say that.
The White Sox winner.
White Sox fans, welcome into the Sox on Tap Sunday Funday, March 26th edition here. I'm Jonnie, Tony Marchese, Sean Roberts joining me today. We got a lot to discuss, boys. How are we doing?
Doing better than Leury Garcia.
R.I.P.
So,
Jonnie, I'm sorry about your boy, man. I just have to start the show off and wish you the best in these trying times.
Thank you. I appreciate it. If you guys can see over my shoulder here, I do have the Leury Garcia jersey hanging like, White Sox used to do with Eloy when he was injured to start the season, having that in the dugout. So, we're paying our respects here.
You want us to sign the jersey, Nani?
Yeah. Everyone should sign it. Maybe get a pair of his batting gloves or cleats or something like that, too.
I'll be honest, though. This is something that I never thought the White Sox would do. Right? Like, this is something that this is different. This is different.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I just heard some thunder and the skies are opening up, Jonnie. Are the gods crying?
I think so. The baseball gods are crying. We got a lot to get to today. We appreciate everybody being with us Sunday Fun. I know the White Sox are playing right now. However, no TV broadcast of that, just radio. So if you're joining us or Len Casper, let us know what's going on in that game. We'll keep an eye on it as well. But that's the big news that we're jumping off the top here. We're going to get to some updates on Sox on Tap, the show itself. We're going to make some season predictions today as well. But before we do that, everyone, make sure go and subscribe to On Tap Sportsnet on YouTube. Like the On Tap Sportsnet Facebook page, because that's where you should be joining the comments in this. Get them featured up here on the show. We cannot see if you post them through Twitter, so make sure you're on those platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and we can get your comments in here. Join the discussion. Love to have you in. So, guys, I was going to start with our Sox on Tap kind of housekeeping stuff, but I think we need to dive into this roster stuff. The news that we broke in with was obviously Leury Garcia not making it per reports, not finalized, right? The White Sox haven't announced that yet. And then a couple of relievers, Nick Vila, Brian Shaw, not making the cut here. Initial reaction. Let's hear it.
I'm not really surprised, Jonnie. I think that the writing was sort of on the wall with Leury Garcia. I know that Shaw came in, as an off-season signing, but it wasn't the sexiest of moves, so to speak there. So no real surprises, especially when I think Oscar Colas really pushed the envelope through spring training. So I'm not really shocked. Sean?
I think with, Leury, I don't know, man. I'm shocked as far as that goes. The relievers, Shaw and stuff like that. Whatever. I didn't see them being big parts of this this rotation, this bullpen. So I really didn't even. Whatever. Shoulder shrug, I guess. Good luck with your guys' careers.
Right. I guess Nick Avila on that one, he was a Rule 5 pick. So Fegan is reporting that they are possibly looking at ways to potentially keep him in the organization. But, with the Rule 5 picks, there's a, stipulation about putting him on the roster and whatnot. So we'll see what happens with that. Like I said, these are all reports that are coming out. Brian Shaw, he walked a shit ton of guys during spring training, so adios to that. But Leury Garcia, guys, I thought just for the money, they would have done it just because that's the White Sox way, right? That's where I'm at.
But how many times have we seen the White Sox in recent years move on from a guy that's just not cutting it? I feel like it happens mid-season. More often. Yeah, even midseason. I mean, look at Dallas Keuchel. You can even go back and look at and pull some other names here. But every time we do this, it's like the fan base gets super shocked. Like, oh, my God, we're moving on from this. I don't think Leury Garcia was really a bad baseball player. He offered versatility in the field. He, served the White Sox well in his time here. He had a bad year and really struggled through major portions of last season. He's getting a little bit older. You can make all you want about the contract that Rick Hahn signed him to, but this was the right baseball move, and the Sox did it. And again, that should be applauded. But for all intents and purposes, though, that guy's been around this organization for a very long time, is held in high regard by most of the players in the clubhouse. It'll be interesting to see where he winds up, but for the White Sox in 2023, they made the best decision moving forward here.
Yeah, I think this is just something that we're not like, we're accustomed to it, right? Like happening during the season. But I think we all just were like, especially last year, right? When Leury gets that 3-year contract, we're like, all right, well, he's not going anywhere. So he's going to be on the roster no matter how good he does, no matter how bad he is, whatever the case is, he's always going to be there. And this is different, and I don't know if this is a Grifol thing. I love it. I'm all for it. Listen, if you don't deserve to be on the roster, you don't deserve to be on the roster.
I want to get to that. You just mentioned that name there, Pedro Grifol, and we'll have some more to discuss about him later. But Hanser Alberto looks to be the utility guy that's going to replace Leury Garcia. And if you go on spring training merit, earned it. He definitely played much better than Leury did. There's no doubt about that. He played across the infield, multiple positions. Shit, even went to first base one time when they needed a guy there. So there's that versatility there. However, if you go and look back at his numbers, let's not take Cactus League for the end all be all here, because there's a reason the guy has jumped around and he's a journeyman in this league. Part of that's being a utility guy, but the other part is that his bat can't consistently stay in a lineup. And I know he's going to be on as a bench player, but I don't think we should be totally over the moon, because guess what? Hanser Alberto might just turn into the hashtag Grifol guy version of Leury Garcia.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up, Nani, because literally before I got on with you guys, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a look again at his baseball reference numbers from previous years. And I'm like, 240, he did hit 270 one of the years. I can't remember what it was, but it's nothing over the top, right? And again, he is going to be a bench player. He's not going to be an everyday player in this lineup. It's something different, though.
Is he just a placeholder for Romy Gonzalez?
That could be too. It could be too. We don't know. Sox are doing different things, Tony. This is a whole new world we're stepping into here.
I'm interested. You bring that name up too, because we've got some other guys to discuss on this. But Romy Gonzalez is one of them, and I feel like he got off to a slow start. And once again, spring training is not end all be all. But Hanser Alberto shot way past him,
the tone.
And then he set the tone early, and then Romy, as of late, has been putting on a push, and he's hit 3 home runs in the last week. But I don't think it's going to be enough to save him. Plus, he has minor league options.
Yeah, I think that's the important part there, Johnny, is the minor league options that you've got for Romy Gonzalez. But that's why I ask, is he a placeholder? Is he just a guy that's going to fill that roster spot for right now, offers that, utility aspect of his game? And then, it eventually just becomes Romy's spot. I mean, he's also a guy that's, had a few cups of coffee up with the major league team. I'd say that this is the best that we've seen Romy Gonzalez hitting, is Johnny, this last week. It seems like it's Alberto's job at the moment. I just wonder how long of a leash he will have, because you bring up, is he just the Pedro Grifol version of Leury Garcia, or is he going to be with this team all year? I think that the jury's going to be out on that one.
Yeah, and that's a guessing game, right? The guy could be on this team through the middle of May and have a .85 batting average in a couple of his starts and a couple fill-in roles there, and we're going to be sitting here going, okay, we're done with this guy. Time to move on. Let's bring up Romy and see what happens. I guess, since we're talking about the finalizing of the roster and all that, does Billy Hamilton make this squad?
He was another name, Sean, that I was just about to bring up here too, because he offers one thing really, and one thing only, and that's speed. His glove will play in the outfield, but when you look at all of these other options, when you throw a name like Romy Gonzalez out there, when you throw a name like Jake Berger, who's had a very impressive spring training, if Billy Hamilton makes the roster, he's going to be one of those guys that doesn't have those options to go back down And if you do wind up in a spot where Billy Hamilton isn't seeing a lot of playing time, isn't being utilized in the way that he should be, he's sort of a waste of a roster spot. But, when we brought him back, I think we all sat here and talked about how, these rule changes are going to benefit a guy like Billy Hamilton. He's a weapon. I think that, despite his numbers this spring, he still offers exactly what you thought you were getting when you signed him. So it didn't really matter what his performance was. I mean, people are going to look at the spring numbers and say, why is this guy making the team? If he's making the team, it's because they brought him in here knowing exactly what they wanted him for in situational, just purely situational instances that they're going to use down the stretch. And it'll be interesting to see, how often he is used, because he's terrible at the plate right now. And I think we've all seen that.
We're not signing him for his bat,
Right. Now, I was just going to bring up Adam Hazley, that he needs to be in this conversation as well, because talk about guys that are, putting on a show during spring training. He's been terrorizing Cactus League pitching as of late as well. And I think he offers that versatility. I know he was kind of more corner outfield last year, but think about when Luis Robert needs a day off, who's going out to center field. Obviously, you could throw Billy Hamilton out there. We know that defense would be fine. However, that's kind of a black hole as a lineup spot. Adam Hazley offers you a little bit more at the plate. Not saying it's, not saying we should glorify him for a solid stretch of spring training action.
Aren't you still mad at him though, Jonnie?
Well,
Adam Hazley. I know Sean is.
I mean, he ended Danny Mendick's season and his time with the White Sox. So, I mean, that does leave a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth.
It's going to take a long time to get over that. He's going to have to hit some walk-off home runs, set off some fireworks for Tony.
I'd take it. But Jonnie, that's an interesting name to bring up in this conversation.
And I want to talk about Billy Hamilton just real quick. I want to finalize that because Tony, you brought up the point of with the rule changes and how he's going to be able to affect in a baseball game. Man, you put him out as a pinch runner in the 8th and 9th. There's no more with these rule changes. There's really no more controlling the run game when you're a pitcher. There used to be where it's like, yeah, I can throw over, I can throw a pitch, I can throw over, kind of setting the base runner up if you want to try and pick him off or whatever. There's no more of that. You get what? Two
disengagements.
Two disengagements. So let's say we're playing Cleveland. It's the eighth inning. In a big game, we throw Billy Hamilton out there on first base. The guy throws over. You take a couple pitches. Guy throws over twice. Let's say, okay, we know one of the next couple pitches, Billy Hamilton for sure is going to steal that bag because he's going to be able to get a bigger lead. If you can only throw over twice,
right. Well, just want to say you can disengage a third time, but you have to get him. So if you really telegraph it, you could be caught in a pickle.
Right. But he can get a little bit bigger. Like he can extend it just a little bit.
Yeah. And you got the 6 extra inches too with the base.
Yeah. So for me, from a speed standpoint, if we want to, obviously we like ball go far, team go far aspects of things, right? But if you bring a little bit of that small ball into here, especially late in games when you're down a run or you need that winning run, Billy Hamilton is a game changer with his speed. That's all he can do, right? He'll be able to play a decent outfield or enough. He's not going to do anything at the plate, but man, you put him on the base path. Excuse me, it's a different game.
Words are hard, Sean. No, but I agree though. I agree. I talk about the element that you brought. I think Tony kind of, when he introduced it, in a way, he already summed that up by saying they know what they're getting with this guy. So, and obviously with the new rules, it plays into his favor in that regard. So, once again, these are just the reports that we have right now on Sunday afternoon here as we're talking on Sox on Tap Sunday Funday. So to check out ontapsportsnet.com for more news as it rolls in. We'll keep you updated there. Guys, with that in mind, I think we need to discuss Sox on Tap happenings for this year. We've got a few alterations that we'll be making to the show this year, and I think Tony should explain some of those details here.
Yeah, so first off, we'll still be bringing you guys post-game shows, except alteration of the schedule. There will be no Friday or Saturday night post-game shows. We'll still keep the Sunday Funday. We'll recap the Sunday series or the weekend series on Sunday and an extended Sunday Funday show. Same regular post-game shows Monday through Thursday, Jonnie. And we'll have a nice rotating crew in here. Sean's going to be on the mic a little bit more. You'll hear from Besnick as well at Sox Insane. He's the guy who's been writing up all the recaps last year. You've heard him on the show a couple of times. They'll be joining into the rotation more with the longtime staples who've been on the show for the past couple of years. Jonnie, some other happenings. You are the resident tailgate expert here, so why don't you talk a little bit about tailgates that we've got coming up?
Right. Yeah, we're obviously home opener. I think that's a given, right? So anytime you're out there in Lot B, just look for the black on tap Sportsnet flag. That's where you know find the Sox on Tap crew out in Lot B. But we're going to aim to try and organize some of these events a little bit more frequently, typically on Saturdays. And we're going to try to aim for hopefully 2 a month. Obviously, that may be skewed. You got a break with the All-Star break, say like July, something like that. But we're going to aim for it. We're going to shoot for it, see if we can make it work, even if it's just a get together, with some people that want to meet up, drink some beers, talk Sox before heading into a game. And we're also doing it up big, like we do for a home opener every year. So I'm really looking forward to that, guys. So once again, make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at OnTap Sportsnet, at Sox on Tap, and look for the black OnTap Sportsnet flag in Lot B when the tailgates are going down. So other than that, we got some news, Sox on Tap related news. I was proud to be able to tweet it out on Saturday morning, after the White Sox named their starting rotation for the season on Friday. Sox on Tap development on Saturday morning. Breaking: Tony and NWI Steve have been named opening night post-game hosts. Tony, how do you feel about the honor?
Jonnie, first off, I'd like to thank everybody here. Thank all the listeners. I'm very happy to be alongside NWI Steve this Thursday. We'll actually be on scene, on location at Casa de Marchese. We're going to watch the ball game together, throw a couple of beers back, and then we'll be doing a live show at the conclusion of the game. First post-game show, new season for Sox on Tap. Very excited. We're going to try and hashtag set the tone, as Steve likes to say. And hopefully we're talking about a White Sox winner. But Jonnie, I'm honored. I know Steve is not with us today. He's off on business, but I think he also shares the appreciation for being named opening day post-game co-host alongside myself. So I was chatting with him just before we got on the show. We're ready. We'll be bringing our A game, hopefully. And like I said, talking about a White Sox winner and drinking victory beers is very much what I'm looking forward to do, guys, especially against Jose Abreu and the Houston Astros. So looking forward to it.
Right. I just want to say congratulations to you guys for being named. And I'll be back for Lance Lynn Day when his turn comes up. So second, night of the year after a day full of ZZ Top in, guts and nuts, grit, fire, passion, and TWTW. I'll be on talking about a Lance Lynn win on Friday. So, Sean, you can get in on opening weekend stuff. That's all the other thing too. We just said that schedule, and you're probably going to be like, well, why are they doing this over the weekend? Opening weekend exception. It's been a while since we brought you post-game shows, so we will do all of the opening weekend, and then we will revert to our normal, our announced schedule of Monday through Thursday, and then Sunday fun days. So, Sean, gonna get in on this action here.
As far as opening weekend goes, I will be in the state of Illinois next week, but my sister is getting married next Friday. Rehearsal dinner on Thursday during opening day.
This is punishable.
This is illegal.
This is wow.
What?
So I will be I'll be following along. I'll be following the game along and stuff like that throughout the rehearsal dinner and all that. And then I'll be coming back here to Des Moines Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening at some point. And then I am playing in a golf tournament on Sunday. So a lot happening during opening weekend for me. But yeah, no, I didn't even realize either. I just realized about a month ago that her rehearsal dinner was going to be on opening day.
This is what you call a rough scene.
I think here's
the problem.
If you make it through that completely competently, I think you need Brother of the Year award.
It won't happen. It won't happen. But here's the issue.
That's acceptable too. Just
this is a family of White Sox fans. So like even the family, who she's marrying, White Sox fans. So this is gonna be tough scene.
How did this not get straightened out earlier? Sean. I don't know.
I don't have
how,
a say in
how
this.
yeah, this
I don't
is
have a
bad.
say in this.
This
I'm
is
just
bad.
okay. This is where I got to be. All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
So
Well, we feel for you, Sean. I think we'll.
I'll be engaged as much as I can. I'll be following along as much as I'm allowed to. You know, I don't know if there's going to be rules put down for me or for anything like that.
On a
But,
holiday? This is.
I'm with you. It's my favorite day of the year. But I'll be maybe giving a speech or something. I don't know. It's
all right. Well, T's and P's to Sean for opening day, but
Thanks, boys. I
at least
appreciate
you'll be able to catch the back.
Is
half of that
he
series,
starting
sounds
the
like.
season on the IL, Johnny?
We might have to. Stay tuned at Sox on Tap on Twitter for further roster.
Sounds about right
as it relates to the show. But Sean, I know you're up in the air for next weekend, but we got you here today, and we got to talk some predictions for the 2023 Chicago White Sox season. And we've got a number of categories. We're going to go through them. Each panelist here give our prediction, explain a little bit, and maybe we'll have some banter about some of these answers if there's some off the wall stuff going on here. So I just want to start it off, and very simple one. It's a number you're going to answer with. How many wins will the White Sox have in 2023?
86.
88.
90.
Good for you, Nani. Good for you. I couldn't get there.
Is he getting up for the letdown, Sean? Is he getting up for the letdown with this prediction?
My original. So I took the time and I wrote it all down on a piece of paper here. Trying to be organized, and I couldn't put the 9 and the 0. I couldn't do it.
And understandable. However, I want to explain this a little bit. I want to get your guys' takes on too. Why you guys might be a little below this. I was reminiscing on last year, and it was very disappointing all throughout, right? Because we had high expectations for this team coming off a division championship, getting a taste of the playoffs. I know it was mostly a rout, but the electricity of that, game 3 back in 2021 gave you hope, right? And it's like, man, we want this atmosphere again. We crave it. We want to get back here and, revamp, reload, go back and do it again. This is supposed to be our competitive window. Last year happens, things unfold, bad vibes in the locker room, tons of injuries. You've got the Tony La Russa situation, all of that stuff. You got the Dallas Keuchel drama, all of that shit. Underperformance from so many guys that couldn't hit the ball out of the ballpark all year. And yet that team still found a way to win 81 games. In the moment, terrible, unacceptable, worst season in White Sox history. That's what we're saying. That's the narrative. However, that cast of characters, it's mostly returning, mostly healthy to start the year, as far as we know right now, was able to string together 81 wins. I have faith that they can get 9 more this year with hopefully some of the bounce backs, resurgence, better vibes, just fresh outlook, right? Sometimes you just need a new face, new voice. That's where I'm at, and that's why I sit at 90.
I like it, Johnny. I think the thing for me is, the new schedule. You're not going to have as many games against the Kansas City Royals or the Detroit Tigers.
I think that's
normally
a good thing. I think that's a good thing because it gets them
on
their game, and you got to bring it
thing,
every day because we'd play down. The Royals kick the shit out of us for whatever reason.
That's true.
It doesn't matter how good we are. The Royals always dominate us. So less games against the Royal. When we go in like it's always like late August or early September, and we go to Kansas City for that 4-game series, and we're sitting there on the 4th game, that day game, getaway day, and we're always hoping to fucking salvage one. That's how it goes in White Sox land.
Yeah, that's what you would call that. That's so White Sox, Johnny. That's exactly what that is.
But very Soxy.
I think that there's just gonna be a little bit of a hill to climb to get that 9 down on that piece of paper, as Sean said. I think that there's still gonna be games that you would not have had to have played against some of these teams, especially on the NL side, that they're going to have a little bit of a tougher hill to climb than they have in the past. We'll see how, Pedro Grifol shakes out. But, one thing that sort of got me scared early on is Pedro Grifol saying things like, I'm going to keep this batting order the same. And we've sat on this show and talked about why, Tim Anderson and Luis Robert in 1-2 with Andrew Benintendi 3 doesn't, feel great to us. That said, if that's what he's going to roll out there, okay, we'll see if it works. I hope it works. But I still think that there's things that need to be sort of ironed out. And then my X factor to this, Johnny, you're not going to have Liam Hendricks closing ball games for you for the first portion of this season. And I think that, for a team that really relied on him to shut the door for the last couple of years here, the back half of some of these ball games could get a little bit interesting. And so if they choke away a few of them early on, it's going to be a little bit difficult to make up some of that ground. So I don't think that they, pass that 90, but I do think they're going to be in play for the top of the division. Sean, I'll turn to you.
Yeah, and it's kind of why I didn't get to the 90. And I'm with you, Nani. I think that these guys are going to get – I hate saying this, but because we're relying on it, but I think you're going to see those bounce backs, right? This is, as of right now, like you said, this team is healthy. Knock on wood, because that can all change very quickly, as we've learned over the last few seasons. But I just, getting to that 90, I don't think it's going to take 90 wins to win this division. I think they're projected at, what was it, like, not to get into all stat nerd stuff, but 84 wins or something like that, or was it less than that? 75, I don't know, but I like the 88. I think they can do it as long as these guys stay on the field. The biggest thing is these guys stay on the field, and it is cliche to say, but they are way too talented to not get there, right? The issue has been health. They haven't been healthy, at least their core group, right? The guys that have been here, Luis Robert Jr. now, Tim Anderson, Eloy, Yoan Moncada, Yaz, apparently is in the greatest shape he's ever been in. So if these guys can just do what they do, that's easily an 80-win team, at least I believe so. Now things can change, but yeah, I feel comfortable with the 88, and I do have them winning the division with the 88.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. We'll move on to our next topic here, Tony. We're documenting these so we can come back and either laugh at ourselves or say what geniuses we were at the end of the season. Tony, you had 86, right? Okay. Sean, 88. I had 90. All right. Bookmark that. That's down here. Let's move on to our next prediction for the 2023 White Sox season, and that is team MVP. Tony, start us off.
I mean, I really want to go with, somebody near and dear to my heart, but that's probably not going to be the
Leury
team
Garcia?
MVP. No, I was going to go with my
Is
boy,
he making
Gavin.
the roster?
Gavin Sheets. No, I'm actually gonna say Yoan Moncada. I actually am gonna throw that out into the universe and say Yoan Moncada is your team MVP. I think he's gonna have one of those bounce back years like you guys have talked about. Maybe not 2019-esque, but close to that. And I think that he'll hit very situationally this year. He got the good start out of the WBC. If we can avoid things like concussion protocols and, keep ourselves on the field for a full season, I think Yoan Moncada could be this team MVP. I think it's time for him to step up and be the leader. He was one of the first guys up here outside of Tim Anderson in this rebuild. Jose Abreu's gone. So these are Yoan's guys now. And it's time to step up, man up, and be that guy, be the phenom.
Yeah, for me, I battled between this one. It was a battle between Yoan Moncada or Tim Anderson, and I went with Tim Anderson. I liked what I seen from him in the World Baseball Classic. He played in those big games, got that feel. And we've learned as Tim Anderson goes with this team goes. When he's setting the tone as the leadoff hitter, hitting his base hits to right field, coming up in those big moments, this offense goes. I think he's going to play a decent enough shortstop. He's not going to win I would love for him to win a Gold Glove, but I'm also a realist here. I think he's going to be able to win a Gold Glove, or not win a Gold Glove, excuse me. Play a good enough defense to set the tone and do just enough.
I've said a little alarm whenever someone says set the tone.
I've said it a lot today. It's ingrained in my head. But yeah, Tim Anderson for me. So
we got our guy NWI Steve probably checking in from some airport. He's saying, so TA is the guy that will set the tone. That's what Steve asks, and I answer yes, because I doubled down with Sean. Tim Anderson will be your team MVP of the 2023 Chicago White Sox. For all the reasons that Sean listed, I don't know if I'm as bullish on his defense there. However, I am bullish about his energy, his leadership. I think having the World Baseball Classic experience is something that will light a fire underneath this guy and just play with more joy, more energy for the game. And don't get me wrong, being healthy is part of that too. You got to be able to stay healthy. We know he had the injury at the end of last year that knocked him out. So being back, being healthy, having to move over to second base for another superstar, right? Never going to say it. And he's, I just want to be in. I want to play. And, he hit well himself, but there's if he was the better option there, he would have played short and they would have moved Seager over to second, right?
For sure.
That's a little kind of stuff that I think will help motivate him. And I've said this before, if White Sox players go to the World Baseball Classic and they perform well and they do well and it, sets the tone for the season, then it's great and I love it. But if they go and they play like shit, or if they get injured, then it's an absolute Mickey Mouse exhibition tournament that doesn't mean anything. So we're going with the first one there. And Tim Anderson had himself a good tournament. So we'll rely on that. And I just think, you got to have the swagger, you got to have the energy. I know that there was mixed reports about what was going on, but I think he'll be free to be more of that team leader, outspoken, vocal. And Pedro Grifol will be a guy that has to sit back and let him do that because Pedro Grifol still doesn't know how the fuck to manage a clubhouse himself right now. It's going to be relied upon from veterans on this team. So Tim Anderson, team MVP. All right, let's move on to our next season prediction for the White Sox. Who will be the team Cy Young in 2023?
Sean's going to love this one. And I have my
Don't
reasons.
do it to me, Tony.
I have my reasons. Lucas Giolito is going to be the Cy Young of this team in 2023. Contract year. He lost a lot of weight, changes to the delivery. I think he's the most hotly debated pitcher in this rotation. I still think you're going to have a pretty solid season out of Dylan Cease. It's going to be sort of hard to replicate his successes last year. If he does, that's only better for us. Lance Lynn, he's the veteran mainstay, but his stuff isn't overly exciting. I think Kopech still has some work to do to get to, team Cy Young levels, although I fully believe he's got the filthiest stuff here. Clevenger's sort of your question mark. I think Lucas Giolito starts to put it back together, sort of the same way you see Yohan Moncada have these up and down years. Lucas Giolito seems to be the pitcher version of that. So I'm going to go with Lucas Giolito. And part of the reason that I'm taking is just because I know Sean is going to hate that pick. So I will go to Sean for his.
Lucas Giolito. Lucas Giolito is my team Cy Young guy this year. And it's a lot of everything that you just said, though, Tony. This rotation is going to need him. This rotation needs him desperately because we don't have that massive depth, right? And Giolito, like you said, is in a contract year. What do we see when it comes to contract year? These guys go out and ball out. Is he still going to have the whiny, oh, woe's me, why am I giving up 6 runs in the first every now and then? Yeah, you're going to see those facial reactions and all that because that's ingrained in him. That's just who he is. That's not going anywhere. But I do think he's going to be a better pitcher this season. At least, again, this is a prediction show. This is what I hope for. And again, it's one of those things. If the White Sox are going to be successful this season, Lucas Giolito needs to be successful. I'm not saying he needs to be the Lucas Giolito that we saw a couple years ago. That would be great, but that's not coming back because Spider Tack's gone. Or the sticky stuff's gone. So that's not happening.
Both of you to pick then, since they're doing increased checks this year.
But I do think he's going to be a better pitcher, and I know that's gonna anyone that has followed me or especially in our group chat and stuff like I think a lot of poor things about Lucas Giolito, but I do believe that in order for this team to be where we want them all to be, he needs to be a huge part of that.
This is the upset of the year. This is bigger than fucking the 16-1 NCAA tournament upset that happened earlier. Sean, you guys don't understand the kind of vitriol that Sean spews about Lucas Giolito in private messages. Shit, he does it on his own Twitter too.
It's going to
However,
continue.
You should.
It's going to continue.
You should see it. It could be a day when he's not even starting, and somehow the conversation loops back to Lucas Giolito. So I am shocked that both of you picked them, and I'm just going to go with the logical one, and it's Mr. Dylan Cease. I don't know if he's going to be as good as he was last year, but even if he's just slightly worse, that's still by far the best pitcher on the team. It's Dylan Cease. I was actually debating he could be the MVP because you need that stability. However, I like to award that to someone who's on the field every single day. But Dylan Cease, we know he was the Cy Young in the league runner-up, not just the White Sox Cy Young, as we're doing our team predictions here. He was the Cy Young runner-up in the whole league, American League last year. One of the best pitchers in the game, inexplicable all-star snub, but that doesn't matter because he went out there every fifth day and did his job, struck out a lot of guys. Yes, he does need to improve some walks. I think that's kind of a staff-wide thing, though, as our guy NWI Steve wrote up at ontapsportsnet.com a couple days ago. But, I mean, Dylan Cease he arrived last year, and now he's here to stay. And I hope he's here to stay for the long term. Obviously, there's still a few more years to go with that, but he's the type of guy that you anchor a rotation with. So Dylan Cease, Team Cy Young in 2023.
Love it, Nani. Love it.
All right. Team reliever of the year. Remember, no Liam Hendriks to begin the 2023 season. Not official, but we all know that is going to be the case. They said they would withhold announcing anything specifically from the team until opening day. So we'll find out more exactly about him in the coming days. So wish the best for Liam, in his recovery. Hope he gets back ASAP. But until then, going to have some guys step up and fill the void. The end of the year, who ends up being the reliever of the year for the White Sox in 2023.
It's sort of hard to pick Liam Hendriks, but obviously if we see him, he's got the best stuff out of anybody in this pen, and going to serve in the most valuable role. It'd be really easy to go with Kendall Graveman right now, but I want to say Joe Kelly. I don't know why I want to say Joe Kelly, but I think that Joe Kelly is going to find himself in a lot of high leverage roles. It's going to be hard for him to sort of bounce back, but he's that veteran guy that did not have a great year last year. So I don't know. I'm just going to take a shot in the dark and say Joe Kelly.
You know, I think a little bit of it is, Tony, because we all want to like Joe Kelly.
We do.
We want him to be the guy that was sticking his tongue out at Carlos Correa, right?
Yes.
And be able to walk the walk behind it too, not just talk.
We want the cocky asshole, right? Like that's the Joe Kelly that we all want, and we didn't get that last year. We were robbed of it because he struggled so much. So I like that, Tony. I'm going to go Ronaldo Lopez because I think with Liam Hendriks missing to start the year. And I don't know what kind of role late in the game Lopez is going to have, but man, if he ends up being that 6th, 7th inning guy, potential fill in every now and then in the night, I would like to see him get a chance. I know Graveman is probably going to be the guy to do it, but I would like to see Lopez get a chance. The guy was awesome last year out of the pen, and once he kind of had that set role, we really saw him succeed. So I'd like to see him year 2 here in the bullpen and really dominate.
Guys, you're making it tough, and I feel like I'm just copying, but I'm going to go with Raylo too. I will say, I'll mention that an honorable mention for this, maybe a dark horse is a better word for it, would be Jimmy Lambert, because I do think you'll get some nice length out of him, and it will be an underappreciated aspect. Maybe not as much at the end of games, but helping bridge that gap, say, need some help when starters, especially I think early on in the season when starters can't go as long, still building up. Jimmy Lambert would be a dark horse here, but I got to agree with Sean. When I go and think about it at the end of the year, especially with Liam out, you need someone to step up, and it's going to have to be by committee. They've talked about doing that. Pedro Grifol talked about that. Those guys in the pen themselves have talked about it. But one guy who will probably never speak up too much, might give you a nice reaction after the fact, but he just goes out there and does his job. He gave up only like 1 home run all of last year. Ronaldo Lopez became lockdown in high leverage situations. And with Pedro Grifol's approach to this, you'll see him in multiple situations with the no set closer thing to begin the year. You might see him close out a few games, but I think more, if the top of the order is coming up and it's favorable matchups, handedness wise, he's going to be the guy that gets the ball when you need a right-hander there. Instead of, I think last year that was more Kendall Graveman, right? As we were approaching. Yeah.
I love the parody here from Grifol on, I like the same lineup every day. No set closer though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can tell he's done this before, Tony.
Pitching's
been around the block of time.
Different game.
All right, guys, let's move on to our next category here. And that will be, oh man, we've got a bunch of characters lined up for this one. Pick almost anyone on the roster, essentially, but bounce back player of the year. Will bounce back in the biggest way for the White Sox in 2023 after an abysmal 2022.
Man, I was gonna go with Lurie Garcia here, but I think that one got taken out back and shot before we started the show.
All right.
I'm gonna go with Yasmani Grandal. I think I have to. As Sean said, best shape of his life. This is a guy that I believe he was quoted saying he needs more bat drops this year, and I want to see the same thing because I know that those provide fireworks. They make Jonnie happy. They're visually appealing to people. But I think more from the bounce back side, having him on the field and actually catching the most games is going to be very beneficial for the White Sox. So if he's in the lineup and play some solid defense this season, I think that's going to bode well. I'm going to be watching his defense just as much as the bat here, boys, because, Sebi Zavala, I think, has a little bit of an edge as a defensive catcher, but there's not a very large gap to close there. Yasmani Grandal has to be just an absolute stud for this team to, really, really do well. And I feel like we've said this about a lot of guys, right? There's so much bounce back. There's so much stay healthy. There's so much stay on the field. But
this is what Steve warned us about.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
And that's why it's hard to get to the 90 that we talked about earlier, Sean. There's going to have to be, almost 90 games of Yasmani Grandal behind the plate, if not more. And if he does that, I would say that you can write him in as bounce back player of the year. So I'll turn it to Sean.
Yes, was my pick. We need him. He's our starting catcher. We need him to be out there. He needs to be able to control the staff and our bullpen and all that. But man, I'm looking at more from the offensive standpoint, and everything you said, Tony, about the defensive side of things. Yes, we need all that from Yaz, and he needs to be out there. Offensively, though, man, we missed his power. We missed him just being healthy. And I think this year, at least so far through spring training, everything we've seen, everything we've read, he's that he's the poster boy for a bounce back player of the year. Right. But this team, just like, when I talked about Giolito, like in order for this team to be successful, when I look at a bounce back player, Yaz needs to be the biggest bounce back player of the year for this team. And they're like Nani said when he introduced it, man, you go, there's so many guys you could choose from.
Pick so many. Yeah.
But I look at it as importance, and Yaz is that 1A or 1B type guy for bounce back.
All right. I love it. And that's obviously a really strong pick. So, you see some of these trends forming, right? When multiple guys here on the show are picking the same guy. And I think that's logical for,
and we didn't share these, by the way, people.
Right,
we didn't share these at all.
This for the record. I'm going to go with someone that was named an MVP earlier, and that's Yoan Moncada. Now, I think Tim, just an overall impact standpoint and on team morale, taking all things into account, right, will be my MVP. But as far as bounce back player, guys that had a dog shit season last year, I'm sorry, that's what I call it. You can go and nitpick the stats all you want for what the sky his potential is for the tease that we saw in 2019. Yoan Moncada needs to get back to that consistently, especially at the plate. I don't want the slumps, all that. It's going to happen every once in a while, but man, more consistency, more power, more pop from these guys. This team, this lineup was built to hit home runs, and Yoan Moncada is a big part of it. He's not the biggest part, but he is a significant, consistent contributor, and he can do it from both sides of the plate. I like what I saw. He made the All-World Baseball Classic team. Now I know, of course, now as I make this pick, and I had it in mind before, and we see he exited after 2 innings today. I'm going to go ahead and assume that's precautionary. Hope it is.
The Nani curse.
Yeah, I mean, he started last year on the IL with an oblique issue that took like a month and a half plus to recover from. Hopefully set the tone with something a little bit, more clean from the start here. And that's able to help him get in a groove. So I'll I think he has. You could go Luis Robert, and I know not all of that was on him because he was on pace for a good season before suffering that injury, so you could include him in that. But I'll go with Yoan Moncada in terms of expectation versus actual output, last year to this year. So, all right, let's move on to our next category. Got some new faces in the building, in the clubhouse. Newcomer of the year for the White Sox in 2023.
I think this one's sort of the obvious choice in Andrew Benintendi. This guy signed the largest contract in White Sox history. But I don't think that, with that said, I don't think it's going to be absolutely an outstanding year where he's jumping off the charts. I do think he provides this team with sort of what they need. And I wish he was hitting in the 2-hole. I'll keep saying that over and over again. But a guy that's going to drive the baseball, higher on base percentage, put the ball in play kind of guy. I think his power will play a little bit better this year, hitting at guaranteed rate than it did last season. He's played in the division for a little while, but he's also played in the AL East. So we talk about guys that were AL East guys a lot. And it's just he's played that level of competition, albeit maybe not up to par. That's why Boston parted ways with him eventually, but he's still got that pedigree. And guys, I think that this is somebody that the Sox have had on their radar for a very, very long time. Sort of a Kenny always gets his man type guy, but you're going to see better defensive play in left field, something that we've asked for years upon years. Somebody who's going to be a top of the lineup guy. He has to perform. It goes back to the same thing. We sound like broken fucking records here, but he's another guy that has to perform on a day in, day out basis. And, he's got the paycheck that's going to tell him that he has to. So hopefully we get what we want out of Andrew Benintendi. And I think if he performs at, sort of his career standard levels, he's the easiest shot. He's probably got the best odds to be newcomer of the year. So I'll take the safe play on this one. John?
Yeah, and see, this is the thing, Tony and Nani, like with the White Sox, when it comes to newcomers, because we're fans of the White Sox, we usually don't have a lot of newcomers to choose from because we don't supplement our roster enough to add 4 to 6 guys for depth purposes or to get that largest contract ever. So we get like 2 or 3 guys to choose from. And Benintendi's a great choice. And yeah, he's the slam dunk, right? Biggest contract in White Sox history. My newcomer of the year, and I'm not trying to be some hot take guy or a dickhead, but Mike Clevinger. Mike Clevinger is my newcomer of the year. He's gonna be in the back end of this rotation, right? He's gonna start every other 5 days. It's a 1-year deal. The guy's going to go out there. Say he wins 10 to 13 games. Mike Clevinger wins 10 to 13 games. We are close to that 90 win mark easily. I'm also intrigued, how he handles himself here, right? Because within the media, obviously we know throughout this fan base, at least if you go off of White Sox Twitter, he's the most hated man in America. And how dare us have him on our roster? Well, listen. MLB dropped everything. He's not charged with anything that we know of, right? Like, he's our 5th starter. So, like it or not, the man's taking the ball for the White Sox. And if we want this team to be successful, because they didn't go out and sign another starting pitcher, they didn't go out and be like, hey, you know what? This is weird. We're going to let him go. Let's bring in another starting pitcher. They didn't do any of that. So we need him to succeed. Looking at just the baseball aspect of things, Mike Clevinger to me is going to be the newcomer of the year. Because he's the storyline to follow. We need him to succeed, so.
All right. And also I want to just mention before I give mine that there's some personal bias built into this, at least on my end. I like to try and think about things objectively. Andrew Benintendi's not going to hit enough home runs for my liking. And I know he's coming off a year in which he did some different things, and he moved teams in the middle of the year at the trade deadline and all of that. I would guess you'd usually be a lock for that. But when you sign the largest contract free agent in history, you're an everyday outfielder. I expect a little more pop from you, and he's not going to provide it at the level I want. So that's why guys like Yoan Moncada, Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez will be picking him up in that department. Might do some other things well, but not enough for me to say newcomer of the year. So I have to agree with Sean. Mike Clevenger. I've watched his starts in spring training, and yes, there's some issues that I think all guys are still working through. I think, giving up the long ball a couple of times, leaving some pitches over the plate. But my fuck, when he gets that breaking ball going, curveball, absolute hammer. Absolute hammer, and that's my favorite pitch in the game is a 12-6 hammer curveball. And my God, he induced a couple of swords that were just disgusting. We always used to talk about Cease having the hammer, and now obviously the slider is one of his best pitches. When he's on, if he can command that, I know he's finally cleared up some health issues here too, that were kind of hindering him with bad results there in San Diego, but the movement on this shit is nasty. You figure out some of that command, get working, get into a rhythm there. And that is pretty damn good. I consider fifth starter. I know he's in the fourth spot in the rotation, but I think that's just because the buildup. We'd all consider Michael Kopech, right, the fourth in terms of, ability, right, on this list right now. But with the way it's lined up, so fourth starter, I guess you could say there. Just filling that on the back end of a rotation. I like the potential on the 1-year deal, and he's one that can surprise. Whereas your expectations for Benintendi, whether it's fair or not, are sky high because he's got the biggest contract in White Sox history. And that's Jerry Reinsdorf's fault. But
right, 100%.
That's just the way I see it. So that's me, my personal view, Mike Clevenger, newcomer of the year in 2023.
Do you notice one thing that all three of us keep saying? In order for this team to do this, these guys have to play at a certain level or succeed. And part of it kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, we don't supplement this roster enough to where it's like, hey, yeah, Yohan Moncada can have an off year. He can hit 220 and or whatever. Like, we can't have that because we have nothing else. I
like to believe, just not to cut you off there, but I like to believe that with so many guys having a down season at the same time last year, we at least, not everybody's going to be back to normal this year, but you reciprocate a little bit. Maybe you get a stroke of luck, right?
Yeah, for sure.
There's some baseball gods magic at play here.
Yeah, we got to hope. Gotta hope.
I mean, that was unprecedented, especially with the power outage. I couldn't believe it with this lineup that was absolutely built to hit home runs. So part of that was the approach too. I know part of it was the approach. Don't get me wrong. And now you've got a different, approach coming in here. But man, I just could not believe the lack of home runs. Shit, nobody got to 20 last year. That's sad. I digress. Let's move on to the next one. Unfortunately, we're getting a little negative Nani here. Biggest letdown player for the White Sox in 2023.
Dylan Cease. I'm going to go with Dylan Cease. I think that, as I said earlier, Dylan Cease having that type of year last year only lends to him being a letdown this year for a lot of people. If he comes out and doesn't replicate that, you're going to have a lot of people screaming, what the fuck is wrong with Dylan Cease? Spring wasn't exactly kind to him in a lot of different ways. Then again, it is spring training. Steve might crucify me for saying that because that's where you hashtag set the tone. But I think that Dylan Cease is sort of set up on that table right here where if he doesn't replicate it, he's a letdown. So I'm going to go Dylan Cease.
I'm going to go Elvis Andrus. And it's not like it's going to be some huge letdown. I just think he came on the scene in that last month last year, and he was so hot, right? So hot. And every White Sox fan, I think the three of us included, were kind of like, you got to bring him back. You got to bring him back. I like that he's going over to play second base. I think that's good for him. I don't know if we're going to see what we saw offensively from him, what we saw last year, right? So I hope we do, but I just think it's going to be hard for him to replicate that. So from a letdown standpoint, we might be let down just a little bit by our man, Elvis Andrus.
Sean, he did his coming back down to the earth at the end of the campaign for me. I know that there was kind of that fever dream of that early September stretch when we went on that West Coast road trip and he was smacking around his former team and the Mariners up there in the Pacific Northwest. After that, though, he came back down to earth. You saw the real Elvis Andrus bat in play. So this is, once again, goes into personal kind of take, and I am level-headed about Elvis Andrus. For my biggest letdown player on the White Sox in 2023, without a doubt, will be Oscar Colas. Any tweet about this guy, the defenders come rushing in. It's my starting my opening day starting right fielder, and let's hand this guy the job. And how fucking well has that gone that we've handed guys jobs straight up from being called up as this top build prospect? And guess what? Our farm system ain't shit, for the record. So saying he's the top, he's the tallest midget, right? I'm sorry, guys. I need to see more from him, and I think he's gonna have these struggles, these first year struggles, and there's going to be a lot of swing and miss. There's gonna be a lot of swing and miss. The defense will be all right when he gets in, but my God, he is not going to be the offensive contributor right off the bat that we all hope that he can be, because we're not the Houston Astros. We're not the Los Angeles Dodgers. We don't have a good player development system. I know Daryl Van Schouwen wrote an article that said, White Sox player development doesn't stop at the minor league level. No, you're right. It stops the moment they get signed. The moment they join the organization is when player development stops with the White Sox. So,
this is the guy that said we're going to have 90 wins, Sean.
Don't get up. Hey, there's going to be other contributors that pull the weight there, Tony. Oh, you're just going to lean on Oscar Colas completely all year?
Absolutely not. I'm the one. There's a clip of me talking about how bad this guy's going to be because I've bought this car before.
That would impede your Gavin Sheets, the whole thing there. If
it would. I want more at bats for Sheets.
I think the issue for the White Sox, right, at least in our group of guys, is we've seen this before. Like we're like you can't sell a player to me anymore in our farm system.
It's funny.
Like you're going to have to come up and prove it.
You said exactly what Tony, and you weren't even on that episode, but Tony said that. I've bought this car before, right? From this used car dealership, right?
I'm not going to
make me back in.
I'm not going to listen to it anymore. I hope he comes up and he's God's gift to baseball. I do. Because, man, do we need it. It'd be nice. But for the last 7 years.
I really apologize. I was just gonna say, I really apologize to the crowd, the Twitter crowd that won't use their actual profile picture or name and hides behind burners and is edgelord there. They're the types that are on the prospect hype train, the revenge bandwagon, sort of that type. Not happening. He's going to have some growing pains as he comes in, and that's not to say that he won't be a good major league player eventually, but expecting that in a season in which we need to be competitive immediately, that's a little bit too much pressure for me. So where the expectations are versus what you'll actually get, Oscar Colas will be the biggest letdown player. That's my take.
It's good, Nani.
All right. Next one, best defender. Don't have to go too long on this one.
I was going to say Elvis Andrus. I love the glove. I think it plays. He's a professional baseball player. I know Sean said, biggest letdown. I think that comes from the bat. But
offensively,
in terms of defense, I'm going to go Elvis Andrus.
Luis Robert Jr. Guy is, we talked prospects just a second ago. This is a guy that was an MVP candidate last year, offensively and defensively. When healthy, this guy can run all over the field, gap to gap, covers so much ground. Hopefully he doesn't take a couple plays off this year and drop pop-ups and all that stuff. But he's got the potential to be a Gold Glover. He really does, man. And so Luis Robert Jr. will be my defender of the year.
I debated that one, Sean, and I know that he had a really good 2020 season in the shortened campaign. I just wonder how it holds up over 162, because that was only the real season that we kind of saw Gold Glove, Platinum Glove caliber. So we know that the potential is within there, but there's injuries to consider possibly there. I'm going to go with Yohan Moncada. And part of what will make him my bounce back player of the year as well is continuing that consistent defense, because sure, Moncada had a down year at the plate last year. One thing that stayed consistent was the defense, and that was through all of the ailments. I got to think if he's healthy, or relatively healthy compared to, some of what we've seen in years past. That's only going to continue. And I saw him make an incredible diving snag in the World Baseball Classic. That tells me that he's, locked in, ready to go again at third base. So, and also I think there's something to be said for the comfortability of settling into that position, because you got to remember, he came up, started at third, got bounced over to second base, settling back into there and really becoming what he can be fully at that position on the diamond. I'll leave that for him, best defender on the team. On to our next subject, prediction time here. White Sox home run leader for 2023.
Gavin Sheets. I got to pick him for something, and I'm pretty sure he had the same amount of home runs as Jose Abreu did last year. So if he gets enough at bats, I think Gavin Sheets could lead this team in home runs. Obviously, you want to see Eloy, you want to see Luis Roberts' names up there, but I think Gavin Sheets just has that raw power, and maybe we'll get something special out of the kid this year. Gavin Sheets, most home runs for the White Sox in 2023. Sean.
Hi, Mom. Eloy Jimenez will be my home run leader. Need him to be the home run leader, right? Like
broken
we
record,
need him.
Sean.
It's sad, but it's true. This is a guy though. He has the pop to do 40 plus. Like, come out and do the damn thing, Eloy. Stay healthy. Don't run into nets or anything. Do weird stuff, and he's going to be just fine. So Eloy Jimenez, my home run leader.
I think Tony's going to have to investigate us for collusion, because I am going with Eloy Jimenez as well. My reasoning, though, is I was there in his first game back, right, when he came back from the injury, and he hit this pop-up that was down the third base line, and it looked like it should have been a can of corn for the left fielder. That thing just kept going and going and going and going until it landed in the bullpen. That's the kind of easy power this guy has. So let him go in. He dropped some weight this offseason. I like where he's at in that regard.
Best shape of his life.
So I know they all say that, but I think it does matter for him. And I think that will help him be a little bit, more agile and durable throughout the course of the season. So I'll go with Eloy, most home runs.
I just want to go off the script there, because I feel like most of us are making these picks based on what we need to have happen in order for this team to be good. But if it's bad, I got to put some stock in something, guys, right? So let's go Gavin Sheets for most home runs this season. There's a couple other names, though, guys, that I want to ask you about. And the first one is, if Jake Berger got consistent at bat, say something does happen and you have to go to plan B, could Jake Berger wind up in the top 3 for home runs this year for the Chicago White Sox? Because I could see that happening easily.
Yeah, I don't see why not. He's got the power. He showed that he can hit bombs. Yeah.
In a hypothetical world, there's not a world that exists in which that happens for me, though. Where do they come from? Consistent. I mean, just look at the names that are there at first base, DH, third base. And guess what?
We sat here last year and said the same thing on our previous
second base.
He ain't playing third base at the major league level. I'm sorry.
What about second base? I hope not, but what about
the shift? No.
You know what's crazy?
There's no way he gets enough
about Andrew Vaughn on this show yet.
In a hypothetical world, to answer your question, yes. But in reality, I don't think so, because he won't get the at-bats necessary.
We haven't talked about Andrew Vaughn on the show yet, and I thought that he would be in discussion for something at this point, but it's sort of concerning, given the White Sox history at first base, that this show hasn't really talked about Andrew Vaughn yet.
We're not getting up for the letdown, Tony.
Could he potentially find his way into that conversation?
I think he'll be a consistent, solid performer, so he'll be up there in home runs, but Eloy's got the, Vaughn will hit you some doubles, too. He's a natural hitter. Eloy is a power hitter. That's what
I think with Vaughn, you're looking at 20 bombs, 275, 280. And like Nani just said, hitting balls in the gap, man. That's what he does. He ropes those baseballs, into the left and right center field gaps, and he's going to be. That's what he does. That's what he does. Now, I would love to see him get 30 plus home runs. I don't think he's going to do that. But
yeah, I understand your concern there, Tony, but I just think others will top him in that. He should be up near the top of that. I mean, he was the leader last year, but once again, that was an absolute power outage across the board for the White Sox in 2022. All right, we're getting to the end here, guys. Let's wrap up with 2 more predictions, and this one's going to be a fun one. We will describe Pedro Grifol's first year as manager with what word?
Corpse speak. This guy says everything that Rick Hahn probably tells him to. At least that's what I've seen so far. It's all of the right stuff. It's the anti-Tony La Russa, and it's almost as if a marketing department drew it up and handed him a script so far since the day he signed here, because it's easy. I see this on Twitter every day. Just the comments about the lineup. And I don't believe that we're going to see the same lineup for a full 162, guys. That's going to be damn near impossible, but everything he's saying is so far as if they listened to every critique that they had last season and they wanted to put PR spin to go in a totally different way. I can't put a finger on how I feel about Pedro Grifol so far, but even as I brought up earlier, no set closer, but having a set lineup every day is all of a sudden important.
Didn't you know that you can only play the matchups in pitching and you can't do that with the lineup? This is big brain stuff.
Did not know that, Johnny. I don't have a degree in stat cult, but I think that it's going to be a lot of corp speak. I think we're going to get, a lot of the right things. I'm curious to see what those post-game press conferences look like after a 3-game skid. I want to know what we're saying in those. Everything so far seems like you've got Chuck Garfien as your manager for the White Sox. That's what it sort of feels like to me. So I think a lot of corp speak. Sean?
Real quick, though, about the closing deal, because obviously Liam Hendricks is healthy. He's your everyday closer. Does Kendall Graveman still have that deal where he can only pitch, like he needs a day off the day after he pitches?
Joe Kelly had some of that too in his contract last year, Sean.
If both those guys have that, and I don't know if it's in their contract for this year or if it's still a thing, but if both
I think
those
Joe
guys
Kelly's
have
was because of an injury that he was coming off of last season, so I'm not positive.
So if both those guys who are, you could put in the closer role, have that in their contract where it's like, hey, if I pitch one day, I can't pitch the next day. That kind of might be, so we have to go kind of closer by committee just on who's available that day. Is how I look at it without Liam Hendricks being your.
So it sucks because we won't know until after the fact. They're not going to report on that.
Right. They're not. Yeah. They're not.
It's a good tinfoil hat there, Sean.
Yeah.
Love a good tinfoil hat. Love it. My word for Grifol, tolerable. I think we're not going to get anything too crazy. We're not going to get some obscure quote where we're sitting here after a post game going, how the F did he just say that? I don't think we're going to get any of that. I think
that's going to make it boring, Sean. That sounds boring.
But that's what the White Sox want right now. They want it to be boring because why? Then they're not talked about every day and made fun of or questioned or whatever the case is because of who their manager is. They want the storylines to be about the team, not because the manager looks like he's sleeping in the dugout, not because of whatever the case is, whatever's happening. So I think it's going to be tolerable. I think we're going to get which is okay. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I'll go with, I think, overpraised will be the word that I'll use. Just once again, this is juxtaposition of a lot of people will just go back and harp on the Tony La Russa stuff, and they'll do a lot of comparison, right? Whereas, say, you put it in a vacuum and that didn't exist, how would you really truly evaluate Pedro Grifol this year is what I would like to see. So for that reason, I'll go with overpraised. But another one I was thinking would be satisfactory passing. I think it'll be all right, but I don't think.
I think the overpraise has already happened.
I don't think he's going to be a manager of the year candidate, even in the MLB. But
I think the overpraise thing is already happening on Twitter.com because of Leury Garcia getting reportedly not on the roster. Right? Everyone's like, "Oh, this is different. That was Tony La Russa's guy." This is something we kind of talked about at the start of the show too, so like it's already by him just doing something different, our minds automatically go to, holy crap, what's happening here? This guy's doing something different. It's their best baseball move, best roster move probably, but
isn't that ultimately Rick Hahn's decision though?
But if Grifol goes to him and goes, listen, I can't have, I want so-and-so on the roster, I can't have Leury here anymore. You got to do something about this. Like, he just doesn't fit what I'm trying to put together. So he's ultimately probably got to come up with that original idea, you would think.
That's true. It is Rick Hahn, and if he's probably listening to Grifol, so you're gonna see a little bit more of Grifol's touch on things than you probably saw over the past 2 years. And I think a lot of White Sox fans have wanted that.
You want that relationship.
You want that relationship. You want that to work. Satisfactory, Johnny, is an interesting term to throw out there for it, because when I hear the word satisfactory, it means you're getting the job done. Will he, though, is something that he hasn't proven yet.
Right.
And I think we all hope that he does. So
these are predictions. This is what I think will happen.
okay.
He will, but I think he will,
satisfactory.
but with too much praise along the way, or excuse me, overpraise. That's the other one I used, but that's how I see it playing out. All right, guys, last one. We're getting down to the wire here. Important one though. The most important one here. Excuse me. Not probably. This one is. This is what matters at the end of the day. Will the White Sox make the playoffs? If so, how far do they advance? Where does the season end?
I want to say yes, and I want to say ALCS is where the season ends. I think that the White Sox have to take a step. I don't think anybody wants to go to a wild card division series and call the season a success. I think that the only thing that you can do is make it to at least the ALCS for this thing to be considered a success. Winning a playoff series is the next step on that mountain for the Chicago White Sox. I think they know that. I think they have the pitching rotation that can get them there, assuming that they do make it. You line up Lance Lynn, you line up Dylan Cease, and if Giolito's that 3 guy, you've got 2 options to go in there.
You line up your biggest letdown player. Yeah. Inspires confidence. You said Dylan Cease, right?
Dylan Cease, well, biggest letdown just because Dylan Cease isn't going to do what he did last year. So he's going to be a letdown in somebody's eyes. But when we get to the playoffs, guys, it's one game. It's one start. You have to be on. And I think that the White Sox can make it through that first round this year. I really do. I think that they will surprise a little bit. But World Series, I think the AL still has some teams that they don't stack up well against, especially when you look at the New York Yankees, you look at the Houston Astros. It's really going to come down and depend on who they wind up against in that DS when they make it to the playoffs.
Yeah, I got this team at 88 wins. I have them winning the American League Central. And so, yes to the playoffs. I don't have them going to the World Series. But I'm in the same camp as Tony here. I have them going to the ALCS because that is such an important deal of this core of guys, right? Like they know what's at stake. They know that, listen, this whole deal is coming to an end soon. And to get that playoff series win, that's going to go a long way with these guys. I think that's – and also with Tony, we don't match up with a couple of these teams in the American League. They're far superior. They are from a depth standpoint, from star standpoint. But I do have them going to the playoffs. I do have them winning a playoff series.
I hate to say this, but it's going to be a loss in the ALDS, and that is not they just shit the bed and got blown out like they did against the Astros in 2021. That's not the case. It's going to be other teams' lineups that are just, in margins better than the White Sox, and they were able to attack a tired bullpen that taxed themselves while trying to make up for Liam Hendriks' absence.
You're not. Yeah, that's good, Donnie.
It's going to be a close, hard-fought series, but that's going to be the edge. It's going to be the extra power hitter that's able to, just get around on that Graveman fastball or that bummer slider, just hangs out a little bit more, where we walk too many guys and, something
it's
like
over,
that.
Sean. Cancel the season.
That's just, once again, these are predictions.
I mean, Steve's probably got us winning like 65 games.
It's gonna rip my heart out, but man, I just foresee that when I close my eyes for a good long, reflection period and think about where does this season end, and I can see it happening.
Are we content with that? Are we happy with that? We look back.
I think you feel better about it than you did after 2021 because you got
that was an
doors blown off then, but still in the grand scheme of things, you don't have that signature like check mark to put alongside the score. So I guess a little disappointed overall, all things considered. But once again, I don't think it will be for being just absolutely dominated. It will be hard fought to the end, but come up just short.
Good stuff.
I'm a little disappointed with the end that Jonnie gave there. We should have reversed the roles on who was speaking first in that scenario there. But I think getting to the playoffs is sort of a step up from last year, as Jonnie said. But I still think that their plateau right now is that ALDS, and they have to find a way to get over that. If you see the team guys go and lose in the ALDS this year, Sean, you asked, are you disappointed? At that point, is it time to blow it up, or is it time to add to that? I mean, I think
Tony, they might
that
not
puts
have
you.
Well, you're going to have to replace some parts.
Yeah, you're
not-
going to have to
they might
replace
not have
a lot of parts.
But add to. That would be my.
The adding
Yeah,
to though,
forward.
like we don't even need to go down that rabbit hole because the adding isn't going to happen. The adding isn't going to happen. Andrew Benintendi is our biggest contract of all time. 5 years, $75 million.
So
the adding in Major League Baseball in 2023, we ain't adding, boys. It's business as usual. 1 year, $7 million here.
So you're
$55 million in losses last year for Jerry.
So
yeah,
you're insinuating that it's just time to blow it up, then, Sean.
I don't want it to be blown. I don't want it to be blown up. I
Sounded like you did there.
But because I live in a Jerry Reinsdorf world, right? I live in a Jerry Reinsdorf world, and knowing how much money these dudes are getting this year, it's only going to go up. And we're not in that ballpark range, and you're going to lose guys. We're going to lose a couple players here and there. We're going to find some scrap.
Is it the worst thing in the world to lose Lucas Giolito, though? I don't think so.
No. Outside of me having him winning the team Cy Young this year.
I know there's others there, though.
There's others, yeah. Man. And you already have guys wanting to get paid. Timmy wants to get paid, right? It's just going to keep happening. And we don't have an organization where we're like, yep, Tim Anderson, here's a 10-year, $300 million deal to keep you happy and to keep you a White Sox.
Look at the depth behind it that's coming, the draft classes that have been coming up here. It spells trouble. It spells trouble long term. So that's why I think if you make it to the ALCS, as Sean and I predicted, you can convince somebody to stick around, or you can convince a free agent to come here to try and win. If you bounce out,
we're so close.
If you bounce out in the DS, it's going to be really hard to look at this and be excited about White Sox baseball over the next 3 or 4 years following that, without some serious front office work done. We've seen some hesitance from our GM to make moves involving prospects going for a star at the deadline. We've done some patchwork. I think we were all happy with Craig Kimbrell at the time. I think we were happy with Cesar Hernandez at the time. But this is going to be sort of the year, if you look at it, or you go into this deadline, if you've got Jake Berger, still floating around AAA, you got to make a choice. You got to make a choice on Colson Montgomery. You're going to have to make a choice on Noah Schultz. You're going to have to make a choice on some of these guys and really add. And I think, Jonnie, we don't have a prediction on what's the trade deadline going to look like, but this could be an interesting one. And I think our guy Steve has been on that for a couple, 2-3 years, that this was sort of a pinnacle.
He wants them to be terrible, so they blow it up at the deadline.
I know.
That's Steve's take.
Steve wants to write about the rebuild.
He's the absolute worst.
He wants to write about rebuild 3.0.
I hate
that guy.
In that camp. Why do we even have him on here? I hate that guy.
65 wins for Steve. That's my prediction for Steve's prediction.
Yeah. Oh, boys, we got a little existential there at the end. I kind of want to keep this 2023, but you're right. It will have after effects when you're talking about those end results there. So we have these all marked down. We're going to revisit them later on in the year. We'll check in on
Can't
them.
wait.
See how they're going, see who was right, who was wrong, who was off the wall. And you know what? I totally guarantee there's going to be at least one of these categories that blows us away in terms of a player, and it's out of left field. Someone that we didn't even mention on the show will win one of those categories, and it will just be wild. So
Gavin,
we'll all be wrong.
Defender of the year.
Yeah, right. Yeah, something like that. Oh man, I'm looking forward to it, guys. It was a good season prediction show, so let's wrap it up here. 2 exhibition games against the Cubs. Obviously, they're playing the Rockies right now, but 2 exhibition games against the Cubs coming up. down in Arizona. I'm not looking forward to having to tune into the marquee broadcast. That's going to be pain for
2 days in a row.
Yeah. I wish the Sox had a radio call so I could, mute the TV and listen to the radio, but unfortunately, we got to tough it out, and then we'll get to the real baseball. So other than that, opening day plans. What are you guys doing for opening day? I know, Tony, you had explained a little bit earlier, but let's go around table. What do you do opening day? Not home opener, but with the White Sox on the road here. How you celebrating? I know, Sean, you've got your plans there, but
Yeah, I think we touched on this a little bit, but opening day is going to be interesting for me. I'll be downtown in the office and then catching the train back just in time to make it home here. I think we're going to get some Joey's Red Hots, Johnny. Maybe crush a couple of hot dogs. And, obviously the beers will be flowing. We will be cracking them. Looking at the weather right now, the garage is iffy, so it might be a basement day for opening day, Johnny. I wish that I had the garage open and we were looking at 65 degrees, but beggars can't be choosers. I mean, obviously, dressing up in full Sox gear from the minute I wake up until probably I fall asleep. Beers flowing, hot dogs. I don't think you can really do much else from there. Sean, I know you're probably going to be in like a suit or something. So I hope you've got a White Sox tie at least.
Here's what I'm debating, right, for the rehearsal dinner. Because I'll be in Naperville. So I'll be out in Naperville, rehearsal dinner. I think I'm gonna go free agent press conference day, dress shirt, Tim Anderson jersey over the top. Like when they put the jersey over the dress shirt, I think that might be the look. My sister might kick my ass, but I think that's the route.
Can you get a picture from the rehearsal dinner doing that? Like
I'll do it.
We need it.
I'll do it. I'll for sure do it. That's good content right there. I like it. So
yeah, I think we need that. Look for it at Sox on Tap on Twitter. Mine is just easy tradition, but it's a fun one. Grab hot dogs, like you said, Tony, from my local establishment, Joe's. Always good, but bring that to the bar. We got our own table outlined, reserved, set right in front of a TV. Me and a couple of my other buddies, so we'll be watching it from the bar and tuning into you on the post game afterward.
Sweet. I'm so ready for this, guys. It's the greatest time of year. We get to talk about just a clean slate, a new season. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. And I hope that it's just not as bad as last year. I think you guys shared that same sentiment.
Yeah, right. A lot of negativity on those pods.
Yeah.
Those episodes.
There's different vibes this year. And, I think everybody got to refresh themselves. That's us and the team, the front office.
A little cleansing.
Yeah, a little cleansing in the off season. And then for, the World Baseball Classic, I do think that will help rev some of these guys' engines earlier than remember the passive kind of tone that they had at the beginning of last year. And they said, we kind of took it for granted.
We'll figure it out.
Thought we could just sit around. And they would say these things throughout the year too. I don't think we're going to have that issue this year. I think there's some guys that are, geared up, ready to go from, game one. So looking forward to it, guys. Going to be a fun year. Hit me with the final thought, and then let's get out of here.
Final thoughts. It was great to do this show without Steve because
I agree.
The predictions would have been just so abysmally sad. And I feel like we really did a good job, guys, setting the tone for this season in a positive manner. By sending him to Midway Airport. I thank Steve's boss for planning a business trip this weekend. Mm-hmm. And I think that, the set the tone player of the week is Steve's boss for sending him to, I believe it's California, right before the season starts so that we didn't have to hear about how it's over before it already started. So that was my final thought.
My final thought is, just happy to be a part of this, man, and looking forward to doing a lot more podcasts this season, with my work schedule changing and all that. And this is a great outlet for me to be able to vent about the White Sox, and it's going to be a fun year. You got to put the good vibes out there, setting the tone. I have a feeling the White Sox are going to start off hot, man. I really do. And morale's going to be high, and we're going we're going to get this thing going. So.
Yeah, I like it, Sean. My final thought is that the power will return this year. It was unprecedented last year. Everybody being, in the under 20 home runs. That's ridiculous. I look around the league and I was so jealous just watching teams hit the ball out of the yard. Watching the World Baseball Classic, seeing dingers fly left and right. I think we'll get back to some of that fun stuff this year with the White Sox. A lot of fireworks, Tony. I'm really looking forward to that. So, man, we'll have a fresh slate. Can't wait to get at it. Join us Thursday.
Fireworks for Tony.
Yeah, fireworks for Tony. # set the tone. Make sure to join Tony and NWI Steve if you can stomach them. Thursday night after opening night, hopefully talking about a White Sox winner with victory beers. That's all I got, Tony. Hit it. Boys, good show. White Sox forever.
White Sox forever.
White Sox forever.